evening. Welcome to another edition of the DMV Daily Radio Show. I'm your host, Hassan Giordano, a.k.a. Mr. Politics, back in the building for another remarkable program we got set up for you. But before we get into that, we have to take a moment of silence. We're going to talk about a legend who passed away earlier today. He is the only Major League Baseball player to win both MVPs in both the American League as well as the National League. The first African-American to manage a Major League Baseball team in 1975. And in 1966, of course, he won baseball's Triple Crown. Only two other players have accomplished that feat since then. He drove in 122 runs, 49 home runs, and batted .316 the year he was traded from the Cincinnati Reds to our beloved Baltimore Orioles, helping us win our first World Series that year, one of 4 World Series appearances and 2 titles that he helped us win in the 6 years that he was here in black and orange. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Frank Robinson, who passed away earlier today. He was a man's man, and we want to honor him today with a brief moment of silence. All right, now, let's go O's. We'll never have another Frank Robinson, but we have probably as close of an MVP as you can get on the program today, as we are joined by the remarkable leaders of the SEIU. Not the 500 over here. That's the leader over 500 over here. I'm talking about the Deputy Political Director of SEIU 1199. Ricard Jones is in the building joining us today, along with business organizer Bridget Dumas, also from the SEIU 1199, as we are set to discuss the current legislation being heard in Annapolis that, if passed cleanly with no amendments, remember, would increase the state's minimum wage from the current $10.10 an hour to $15 an hour by 2023. We will speak to these ladies, along with our co-host, of course, Mark McLaren, the union boss of all bosses, is in the building, as well as that legal eagle, Ivan Bates, is here as well, as we get into this fine discussion today. Before we get into the program, as always, got to let you know real quick that this show is sponsored by our fine sponsors, such as that stellar legal team known as Bates & Garcia Law Firm, specializing in criminal defense, real estate, and bodily injury cases. Bates & Garcia is Maryland's legal dream team. So make sure you contact them today for your free consultation. 410-814-4600 is the number. Tell them DMV Daily referred you, and they will give you the homeboy discount. You also want to go to those fine political strategists over at Political and Strategic Solutions, who have mastered the art of political communications and successfully gotten people elected to office since the 1970s, once led by a man by the name of Art Murphy. If you're thinking about running for office in 2020, make sure you give them a call today to get your campaign set up with user-friendly website, integrated social media sites, campaign plan, and more. Make sure you reach out to them today. 240-242-7505 is the number, or on the web, www.politicomsolutions.com. And, of course, Together We Rise is not just a slogan, but it's the movement. It's the lifestyle of SEIU 500. Make sure you reach out to them as well today to join the union movement. www.seiu500.org is that website. Make sure you get a hold of them as well. DMV Daily is always looking to produce polarizing podcasts and informative live stream programs like this one, including the Annapolis Report that airs every Monday here on DMVDaily.news, as well as being heard on the Larry Young Morning Show every Tuesday morning from 7:15 to 7:30 on WRB 1010 AM, where I break down everything that's happening in the 2019 legislative session in Annapolis, that 90-day session. Something we're going to be talking about in depth here today, as well as that groundbreaking podcast that was just released on Tuesday, Law and Disorder with Ivan Bates, which premieres every other Tuesday. And the first episode is breaking all types of records and numbers right now. It has already hundreds of people who've listened to it over the past 48 hours. If you missed it, make sure you go to DMVDaily.news, go to our podcast section, look up Law and Disorder, and make sure you go listen to that one today. We also want to let you know that we are putting together our President's Day Public Safety Forum. We invite all the stakeholders down to Union Baptist Church Monday, February 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. if we do a live stream broadcast right from Union Baptist with the pastor Alvin Hathaway down there, discussing issues facing our community as it relates to public safety here in the city of Baltimore. Special invited guest, of course, is the upcoming newly appointed police commissioner. Michael Harrison will be in the house. Councilman Z. Cohen, Brandon Scott, Tara Andrews from, it's Huffman now, I'm sorry. It used to be her name. She got married, from OSI, and so much more. We'll talk about reforming the criminal justice system. We'll talk about policies and procedures to move the city forward as it relates to crime and public safety. And then tomorrow, make sure, as always on Fridays, we're talking about election 2020. We got 2 candidates coming into the studios tomorrow from the 5th District and the 12th Councilmatic District. Our man Christopher Irvin in the 5th. He'll be in the studio, as well as a good brother by the name of Kelly Cross, who's running again for City Council over there in the 12th Councilmatic District. So you want to make sure you tune in today. But we're going to get right into this conversation. I got some more, but that's going to have to wait till tomorrow because we got Power Pack program in store for you. Always remember, if you want to join in the conversation, give us a call, 410-819-2370 is the number. We'll take your call, or if you're watching us on Facebook like Richard and Skylar and Sean Stinnett and Richard Elliott and so many others are, just make sure you put your comment or your question right there on the feed, and we'll make sure to interact with you as well. All right, so today we're talking about the Fight for 15. And if you haven't heard about the Fight for 15, you must have been living under a rock in Alaska somewhere, because it's been going on for some time. But this year feels like the year that we get something done. So joining me again is Bridget and Ricard Jones from SEIU. We want to welcome you to the DMV Daily Show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us here. I'm glad I finally made it on the VIP list to get, my invite. So, I'm happy to be here. So.
She says that when I've been trying to schedule her for like 18 years now. No, but it's definitely a pleasure to have y'all here. So inform people what the Fight for 15 is. SEIU 1199 has been really the main union and organization pushing this, and where do we stand right now in that Fight for 15?
So I'll say that I feel like we have a diverse coalition. We're one of the partners in the coalition, but we have like faith, we have labor, we have small businesses who are all a part of our coalition. We have over like 200 partners. And the Fight for 15 is a global movement that's focused on raising wages, right? Like, as the cost of living has gone up, wages have remained stagnant. And we know that it's in the state of Maryland, which is one of the wealthiest states in this country. We have about 35% of people who can't even afford their basic necessities. And we're talking about like food, healthcare, transportation, and rent. So we know that a raise in minimum wage is long overdue. So our fight is about trying to help level the playing field for working families in the state of Maryland.
All right, and you got legislation currently pending, HB 166, which I think goes up for a hearing tomorrow.
Yep. And
then Senate Bill 280 that comes up for a hearing on the 21st of this month. How does that look so far in Annapolis? I think you got the Senate President and the Speaker of the House behind this legislation. Do y'all feel good about this year's legislation as opposed to past years?
Yeah, so I'll say there's a lot of momentum. I think that what we saw is that during the last election, this is one of the top issues, right? Like, if you were knocking on doors, you were going to hear about this. If you were at a forum, you heard about it. So we helped to try to make this rise to the top as one of the top issues. And I think that is why the leadership decided to include it in their package. I think it's also why today all the county executives, most of the Democratic county executives and the mayor of Baltimore joined us in Annapolis to stand in to talk about how much they support this and how they want to see a bill get done. So we do think that this is going to be the year. And I think the question now is not like, what does a bill pass, but what does a bill look like, right? So I think our opposition can no longer say that we don't need a raise in minimum wage, or it's too high, it's too soon. But what they are going to try to do is do lots of carve-outs and exemptions and leave workers behind. So I think that's going to be the real fight. Like, I want to make sure that once we pass this bill, like, the headline is something that we could be proud of, and that, we set good precedents for other states and maybe the federal government that's going to come behind us.
So hold on. I'm about to get y'all in trouble. You mean to tell me the mayor of this city is up there supporting a Fight for 15 in Annapolis?
Yes. When
she vetoed the damn thing when it was passed in Baltimore City Council.
That was a city bill. Right.
Man,
and she technically
15
supported
is 15.
it. She
I don't
technically.
give a damn if it's in Baltimore or statewide.
Well, the
serious?
the Chamber of Commerce representative will tell you
funny.
that he does not want to
funny.
create an unfavorable business environment, and the mayor's concern was that if Baltimore City did it alone, it would result in a disadvantageous business environment for Baltimore
When
City.
did she come with
of
this
course, that's
fruition? Because
complete
she
poppycock.
campaigned
But
on it.
The donut
She campaigned
hole,
on
the
the
donut hole
support
effect.
of it, though.
Right.
well, I guess she didn't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what you
during
want me
the
to say.
campaign, she was all for it. Until,
Yes.
Okay, I got you. So speaking of that, Bridget, I want to pull you in on this. That's a good point that businesses especially would make. If you raise the minimum wage here in Maryland to $15, right, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
It wouldn't be the 2020. But when you look at Pennsylvania, that's at $7.25 an hour. Delaware, that's at $9.25 an hour. Virginia, that's at $7.25 an hour. Or West Virginia. Why would a business who's on the outskirts of Maryland, especially, not just pack up and go to one of these neighboring states where they only have to pay their employees these low-level wages?
I'm really glad you asked that question. Thank you so much.
Get him.
The fact of the matter is, opposition has been giving these exact same talking points since the minimum wage started 8 years ago. And we can look at what happened here in Maryland. They said that we would see a massive flight of business out of the state if we raised the minimum wage to $10.10. The data does not support that. That did not happen. It's also incredibly expensive to pick up and move a business out of state. You're starting all over again with your customer base. It's really worth it to just pay the living wages, keep your business in state, because I think that moving is going to cost them much more money in the long run.
Bridget, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you actually find that you have more people moving into the state from the outlying states because they have the opportunity to make more money?
Yeah, well, business owner wise, I just spoke with the business owner of Navita Solar USA. They are a solar panel manufacturing company. And Reynard, who's the gentleman, one of the co-owners who I spoke with, said that he specifically wanted to open his business in Baltimore City. He could have opened it anywhere in the country, but he chose Baltimore because there is such a high unemployment rate among young African-American men ages 18 to 44. So he saw it as an opportunity to come in and really fuel economic growth and employ people who have been left behind and make sure that they're earning a living wage of at least $15 an hour. And workers are going to want to go where they're going to earn the highest wages. So It really benefits us. We're drawing in the best workforce, the highest quality, when we're paying higher wages to our workers.
Okay.
And I want the viewers to understand this. So the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, right?
That's crazy.
Other states and regions with the higher minimum wages, including Washington, D.C., right next door, it was just discussed, along with Washington State, those are currently at $12 an hour. It'll be at $13.50 an hour on January 1st of next year. Massachusetts is currently at $12 an hour. They'll be at $15 an hour by 2023. California is also at $12 an hour. It will achieve $15 minimum wage by 2022. And there's a few other states that will begin gradually indexing their minimum wage based off the cost of living, such as Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Maine, Minnesota. But there's strange ones. Michigan, which I found is the most strange. They're at $9.25 an hour, and their increase in the minimum wage goes between 20 cents and 25 cents each year incrementally till 2030. And they only reach $12 by 2030. Like, that's a little like, but Georgia and Wyoming, $5.15 of a minimum wage. That's less than the federal minimum wage. But the biggest question I've had, and I've heard it from people, Richard Elliott just said it on here. Yes, I do deserve a raise. I just need a salary, period, let alone a raise from DMV Daily. But I've heard it from other people, including the youngest member of the General Assembly, Julian Ivey, who said, why wait till 2023?
Yeah.
Why can't we have $15 next year?
Listen, I totally agree. And I will accept any friendly amendment to move us there faster. I mean, part of it is that this, even though we have momentum, it's still going to be a fight. Like, we still have to fight to get this bill passed. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not easy. It's not done. So there is still opposition. There still are people who believe that low-wage workers should continue to be low-wage workers. There are people who believe that people in our city and our states don't deserve to make $15 an hour. So we're still up against a lot of opposition to get us to $15 an hour. And I'll be the first person to say that the research that we have shows that you need $15 an hour in the state of Maryland today, not in 5 years, right? So we know that there's a need for this bill to happen today. But one, we do want to make sure that we do it in a way that businesses have time to adjust. So the increase is about $1 a year. So, I mean, I totally agree, but and I would love any help to move us there faster.
So y'all came out with legislation that typically isn't done. When somebody puts out a bill, they typically don't say, we ain't taking nothing but this bill right here. We don't want any amendments. Obviously, you would love an amendment that it starts next year. But if, say, for instance, it was watered down with an amendment that may say, you know what, we're not going to get there to 2030, or, you know, we're going to make it geographical, or whatever the case may be, would y'all be willing to accept an amended bill to get something passed this year? Or is it just that? This is the bill, and if you can't pass it in its current form, then we're just not going to take anything?
I mean, yeah, this is the bill. Like, again, I don't feel I can say this enough. It's long overdue. So I feel like the way that the bill is written in a way that gives, business owners enough time to get to 15. So I feel like any efforts to water down the bill are not going to be helpful. They're not going to help working families. They're going to try to leave groups of workers behind. So we are asking, like, anybody. We have a majority of co-sponsors in both the House and the Senate, right? It's in the leadership packet. So there really is no reason that this bill should be watered down. The support is there. So why should we accept, any weakening amendments when the support is there for the bill?
Absolutely. Well, but we also know Annapolis and how crazy that can be.
Yep.
And getting something like that's passed, and to this is, and I want to make sure this is correct, that I'm correct in this. The bill raises the minimum wage from $10.10 now to $11 next year, and then $1 every year going up to 2023.
And then it would be indexed after that to the cost, like to inflation, to keep up with the cost of living going forward.
I thought they were doing 11 this year.
No, next year. Like at the end
as of October
year,
1st.
Right. At the end of this year, it would go to 11.
That'd still be 2020. That'd still be 2019.
2019, yes.
Correct.
Okay, so it goes to $11 at October 1st.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
And then $1 a year after that, right?
Correct.
Because see, some states do July 1st when they do fiscal year.
Yeah, fiscal year.
Right.
Ours is, so yours is October 1st.
Correct.
Where this is going. Okay. See, and that's why we want to get it correct, get it right. Well, here's the question then: so you just threw me. Cost of living index. How would that? Most people have asked me this. How do I figure that out? Like, what does that mean in terms of moving forward? Is there a certain formula that says, okay, the cost of living went up, so we're going to increase it by this amount? Like, how would they figure that out moving forward in the bill?
So there is a formula that they look at. I can't tell you how it works, but
it's the Department of Labor. It's called a Consumer Price Index, and so it's indexed to the average amount that prices for various goods and services over a broad array of areas went up that year. And so it's just like, like the Department of Labor announces unemployment figures every month. They announce the CPI for the year every year. So,
but I think people always ask, like, what is it going to be? And that's the piece where I'm saying I can't tell you what that's
going
to be, right? Like, we don't know, but it's typically, a small. It's going to be probably less than $1 a year going forward.
Well, the question I think most people have is 2023 is 4 years away. Will $15 be enough in 2023 for somebody to kind of, I don't think it's going to be enough to live off of regardless, even if it was tomorrow. I don't think $20 is enough, to tell you the truth, to really live off of, especially if you got kids. So would you be willing to, and that's some of what I think the opposition has said is, all right, well, if we give them this, come 2023, and it gets to 15, then they're going to be asking for 20. And so where do we draw the line, which is what several Republicans had asked me when I was in Annapolis. Is this the line? And I would say no, but I'm going to let y'all tell it.
Well, I feel like if you ask them, they'll say, should we have a minimum wage? And they'll say no. Right? So they never think anything like 15 they always have an issue with minimum wages. And I feel like with sometimes our opposition, with paying fair wages for people who do get work. So that's why we built this into the bill, so that we don't have to continue to have this conversation. So if it is indexed, we don't have to keep coming back. It'll rise slowly with the cost of living, and we don't have to keep, coming back. And then I also want to say that this is we know that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour is not going to solve our problems, right? But it's only one piece of the puzzle, and that's how we have to look at it. So we have to pull this together with a lot of other good policy and good legislation in order to, help our working families. So it's only one piece of the puzzle.
My question is, I got a call, as I usually do, from the prison industrial complex from a friend of mine over there, and their question is this: can y'all put in the bill that the minimum wage applies to inmates who get $1 a day for working several hours, $1 a day for slave labor in the prison? Does it apply to them?
It does not.
Nice try.
Right.
Well,
it should. It's modern day slavery.
It definitely is, and they make a whole lot of stuff that y'all use
Yeah.
each and every day.
Amen.
Yeah.
But we got callers on the line.
Yeah, we got callers. And
Okay.
so I was actually at the hearing for the $15 an hour minimum wage, and I was actually part of a business group that actually was in opposition of it.
Oh, I told
So
you.
remember
I
me
told
being
you.
there. Okay.
I do remember.
So one of the things,
he
though,
wasn't in
hold on. One of the things, though, that this is not about actually business related.
Yeah.
This is actually as far as direct support services was concerned, because that was one of the real concerns that I had with the bill in Baltimore City. Now, for those that don't understand what direct support is, there's easily 25,000, over 25,000 of those that are either physically disabled or in some cases mentally disabled. They can't necessarily dress themselves, feed themselves, and provide services for themselves. So they rely on nonprofit associations to actually raise money and be able to provide healthcare providers or home care providers. A lot of times they're not necessarily licensed, so they're not like CPNs or RNs, and they tend to, in most cases, get minimum wage in the process. Would you be in support of having an exemption to allow these organizations to still flourish, or are you saying that the $15 minimum wage has to be applied across the whole board, including these services like direct services?
Yeah,
support
so
services?
so first we definitely think it should be applied across the board because those workers also deserve fair wages. And second, the community service providers for the developmentally disabilities community is actually included in our bill. Mm-hmm. So, and there also are other number of folks who rely on Medicaid, and we believe that the state should find the money in the budget to pay them.
Well, that was the problem with the last bill, was that some of the advocates for the direct support services were saying that, Medicaid doesn't pay enough right now, and the money that they raise through nonprofits, unfortunately, would actually reduce the amount of care that they're able to provide to their providers in direct support. So,
Yeah.
if we do implement something like this, we would definitely have to make sure that those in Annapolis are on board with making sure that we find the money available through Medicaid to be able to pay for the additional cost of direct support.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think they'll figure out a way to.
We
figure it
know
out.
we in the coalition we know how to do this. We work with the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee in terms of workers. 500 represents the workers in developmental disability group homes. Those, by and large, older ladies who are lifting grown adults out of the tub and into bed and all kinds of. You do a walk a day in my shoes with some of Ricard's members or some of my members and see what folks are doing for $7 and $8 and $9 an hour. You would really be shocked. But so to get back to the point you were making, so we passed landmark legislation 2 years ago that made sure that as the minimum wage went up, the wages for these workers would go up also. So, your point is well taken, but look, I'm all down for the incarcerated community, but are we really going to say the incarcerated community needs $15 an hour, but those taking care of our least able to take care of themselves population shouldn't get $15 an hour? Because if you include an exemption for them in this bill, that's what you're saying. They should make less, and that's unacceptable.
I have a question. What about small business? I have a small business employees, I don't know between 10 and 15 people. Personally, I'm 100% believe you should pay people $15 an hour or more, so I'm not one you need to sell on. But what about small businesses? Must they also pay the $15 an hour? Will they be gradually, how will this work for a smaller business, say 15 employees, 50 employees? Just kind of curious about that.
That's a really great question. So our legislation would not have any exemptions out of the $15 an hour, no matter the size of the business. Decades of research has shown that small businesses tend to benefit the most from wage increases. So that's a really important piece to remember. Also, it's important that small businesses are also required to pay the $15. Otherwise, it's going to disincentivize workers from working for them, and that'll hurt small businesses. They're not going to be able to grow if they can't hire anyone because they're paying $10.10, but someone can go over to the Walmart and work for $15.
Okay. All right.
Well, Jason, guess what? You and Andy, y'all ain't getting no 15. I'm just telling y'all right now. Y'all lucky to get 10-10. I just don't want to get sued.
Yeah, you're gonna have your butt in court. I'm gonna have Mark representing me and Ivan.
We got a caller on the line.
I had the labor movement and a lawyer.
You want to sign a card? I could get them together right there.
Actually, are any
No,
of
man,
you
he's
lawyers?
against you. Why you gonna represent him?
He the one who's against it. Who's about to benefit.
Don't represent him.
Well, if he gonna sign a union card, I'll get you your 10-10. Okay.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
We
Yeah,
get it
producers union.
That's right.
Yeah. We have a caller on the line. Caller, you there?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. I just actually got two questions. The fight for 15. Okay. Is there anything in the bill to stop employees to go into technology or using part-time work to separate their course?
Yeah, I feel like people always say, like, isn't this going to lead to automation? And I'm like, the answer is no. Like, McDonald's, if you walk in there right now and they have automated tellers, is it because they pay high wages? No, it's not. It's called technology. Like, we're moving towards technology, and it's not because the wages are too high that we're moving towards technology.
And it's also important to remember.
It's just going to force them to move to technology even faster?
No, it's important to remember that nothing can replace good customer service. That is what brings repeat customers. Also, automating can be very expensive. You have to buy the machines. You still have to hire people to fix them. If they break down, it can, back up your whole store. So there is value in hiring working people to do this work. But we've seen that, wages have stagnated and automation has been happening anyway. Right. So it's not, we shouldn't be using that as an excuse to not pay people because that's the way the market's going.
But that is an excuse. I mean, I just came from Broad Farms and they had like 7 new machines and one teller.
Yeah, but those machines were really just to order the food, but you still had to pay the person.
No, they have them at the rain register too.
And take the check, take the money and everything.
Yeah. But that's all before.
Yeah, I ain't never met a Royal Farms that did that yet.
Oh, you go out to one by BWI. There's only one person behind.
A lot of them are doing that now.
But all of that is before the fight for 15. So why would we be against this legislation, fearing that it will lead to the inevitable? Look, the economy is changing. People are working in different ways. Brick and mortar stores are going away. But folks are shopping over the internet. But there's a basic question of fairness here, and should people be able to live in dignity if they work a full-time job? And while we're still not there yet, even with this legislation, we came a damn bit closer than we were.
And caller, if Ricardo could answer the second part of the question, because this is something that I've seen a trend in Seattle, was where they were putting employees into part-time positions where they used to have employees that were full-time, but once the minimum wage started to increase, they started decreasing hours in some of these areas in Seattle. And what they had to do was they're looking at passing a bill within city council that if you were hired as full-time, that your job would be protected at full-time and that an employer couldn't backlash against you because of the minimum wage increase. Would you see something like that, maybe proposed in this particular bill, a protection against full-time workers?
I don't necessarily think that it's needed because what would be the point? You can hire one person to work full-time or two people to work part-time, and that's the same amount of money that you'd be paying. So it's not necessarily going to it's not going to cause a shift towards part-time work. And we've seen in Maryland, since raising the minimum wage from $8.25 to $10.10, we've actually seen job growth in the region.
And, that whole healthcare thing with the full-time, part-time, that hasn't actually been true. That hasn't been shown to be true. Now, there are larger employees who threaten that, But that
You know
again,
about that?
that's a separate argument from healthcare than minimum wage.
You're talking about the ACA, I believe.
and that's a whole different. They're not reducing it from full time to part time because of wage. They're doing it because of healthcare.
Correct.
Which are
Correct.
two totally separate things.
And I've seen that happen again. I'm in that industry.
We all related.
I'm in the
all
restaurant.
related.
I'm in the restaurant industry. I've been there for many years. I've been a restaurant manager. I watched as KFC, we actually had a corporate meeting before the ACA was actually implemented. And at that time, we were adjusting our schedules accordingly. We had guys that used to be full-time cooks, fried chicken, that were actually now reduced to less than 30 hours. And in some cases, we were required to put them at 28 hours just to make sure that if they had to stay a little bit extra, that they didn't go over the 31 hours or however many hours it was in order for them to be included in the ACA.
But I would argue that's not the norm. That may be the exception. There may be certain people that do that, but I don't think that's the norm. And I really would argue the same with the minimum wage. I don't think that people are going to reduce hours because, look, at the end of the day, you know how much money's coming in, right? If I can't pay you, if I'm paying you $15 an hour and I know I can't pay you realistically 40 hours a week, then I'm just not going to book you for 40 hours a week. But that wouldn't have changed if I couldn't have paid you at $10 an hour. Like, it's just, that's the reality of doing business.
They've seen it happen in New York just recently. They've actually did a survey in New York. Again, you're laughing, Mark. I'm serious.
I have always
This is not making up.
Jason.
You can Google search. You can Google search anything that I say. But I'm telling you that in New York, that they actually did a survey of restaurants in New York, and they were finding that they were reducing hours in New York, and that's something
because of the minimum wage.
Because of the minimum wage increase in New York City, and the restaurants we're talking about that they were looking at cutting hours even further or even reducing staff. And that's something that I want to make sure that are in, there are some sort of protections in place that if you were always a full-time employee, that you don't get penalized or backlash because employers are now forced to pay a livable wage.
And New York is at $11.10 an hour.
I'm always frustrated with this argument that because business is going to do what business does, which is figure out a way to get the most out of people by paying them the least that they can. So the solution to that is that we don't even try, don't pass anything for anyone, just let the free market have its way. Like we've seen what happens when that happens, and there are no good things. So it's almost like same thing with the ACA. They argued against the ACA, saying, well, you're just going to reduce people's hours under 30 hours, and so then you don't have to give them health care. Right. So then we don't give anyone health care? I mean, at a certain point, we have to recognize that businesses that are irresponsible are going to contort themselves in a million different ways to avoid doing what the right thing is by their workers. But we have to proceed as if, and we believe that, the majority of businesses are responsible partners who want to do the right thing, and we're setting a floor for them. If you really think about it, the businesses that do the right thing are at a competitive disadvantage in the current environment, okay? So if we set a floor for folks, then that means that it helps the ones that are doing the right thing more. The other thing that's not even considered in this whole equation is that people that go from making $10 an hour to $12 an hour or $13 an hour, they don't take that money and put it into their 403B or 401k. Correct. They take that money and they spend it in that community. So 9 times out of 10, the girl working at Rite Aid or the guy working at Walmart or all the rest of these places, when they get another $100 or $200 in their check, guess what? It's going back into Rite Aid and Walmart. So let's not overthink this whole thing.
Or the guy working at DMV Daily. Think about that. Think about that.
Yeah, right.
Says the person that ain't going to pay us $15 an hour.
He can afford the tip jar. He can afford the tip jar.
Right. We got another caller. Brother Thomas. Brother Thomas.
T. Briggs.
Thanks for taking my call. But personally, I think we need an automated mayor and city council. Better use of our money. And I'll tell you guys, can we also put in that bill, if we could, that the mayor and the city council don't get a raise until this bill is fully implemented?
I don't think they do that. They don't. I don't think they're getting raises currently.
They do. They get them incrementally based off of...
They vote on it.
Yeah, but it's not them that votes on it, though. It's a board, a commission now that votes on. But it's not even annual, though. I think it's every 4 years. Every term, they're enabled to get an increase based off the cost of living. So if they can get it, then why can't an average person get it?
They're almost due for another increase because if you remember, shortly before Mayor Pugh came in, they voted to get themselves a raise. So they'll actually due to vote to get themselves another raise coming pretty soon, guys, within the next year to 2 years. And I'll tell you something. Can we also put in the bill? I'm just asking now. We got $275,000 to give a police commissioner who's not hired yet.
Yep.
But yet, they fighting over $15 an hour. Do you guys know which black pastors in the city went to the mayor to ask her to vote against $15 an hour? Because when she ran on this in her campaign, she swore up and down she was going to do it. Then she said some black pastors came to her to ask her not to do this. Who were these jokers?
That's what I would like.
Yeah, I would love to know too.
I don't think my mic is on.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you know.
Girl. And you know what? And I'm gonna tell you something. I personally, I think it's best done throughout the state as opposed to regionally or in a jurisdiction like that, because it kind of limits Baltimore City. Now that's personal, but as a politician who represents what their problem is, they represent thousands of people. They may personally not believe or believe in the people, but you're there to represent these people. And if these people believe in it, as it's clear that they do, then that should not be your representation. And certainly a handful of pastors who most of them probably don't even live in a damn city themselves. They just take from the city and their parishioners definitely are not the majority of the citizenry here in Baltimore.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I mean, I'm not going to get into that whole thing, but what I will say is that
I thought we named names.
The inner circle around her when she was making that decision was not the faith-based community. It was not pastors. Now, there may have been pastors that said this thing or said that thing, but they were not in the end outcome determinative of that decision to veto. So I don't want you to get
business
exactly.
BBC.
I don't want you to get sidetracked chasing the pastor down on the west side when he really didn't have nothing to do with it.
Well, Mark, I can only go by what the mayor said in her own words.
Oh, sure.
Her own words, and I repeat it word for word. The reason she voted against $15 an hour is because she had some black pastors. She said black pastors came to her to ask her to vote against this bill. What black pastor don't want more money in that collection plate on Sundays?
I'm not sure that's an exact quote, but I hear you.
That's a good point. Right. And mind you, remember, she didn't swear on the Bible, damn it. So you can't hold her accountable to it because she didn't put her hand on the Bible. That in and of itself took the cake.
Oh, sweet.
All right, Thomas, thanks for calling. That had to take the cake.
One more question. Can we get some of that $275,000 from this police commissioner who ain't been hired yet? Can we get him some in that kitty for $15 an hour?
Listen, if he can do for New Orleans for Baltimore what he did for New Orleans, I'll give him $1.275 million.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
He has a job in New Orleans. He don't have the job in Baltimore yet. Mark, when have you're a union rep.
Yes, sir.
When have any of your union people ever got paid and didn't get the job?
Wait, get paid and they no. So no, I think what you're saying, he is the acting. He's the acting police commissioner now.
No.
Well, we'll be the 11th.
Monday. But if the council doesn't confirm him next month, he still gets paid $275,000.
But he gets paid 1 year's worth of transitional salary because, quite frankly, he had to give up his job to come here. So, if for whatever reason the council finds him lacking, it's called a gear and parachute. He did.
He didn't give up. Right, he didn't have to. Right.
The boy down in Texas ain't give up a damn thing.
He's got a great $100,000 pension coming.
Yes.
And that's exactly why Harrison had a really good lawyer who saw exactly what happened, and his really good lawyer
But this language, I mean, if you look, this language is pretty standard. This is not groundbreaking language in this agreement. This language is pretty standard across the country. Talk to somebody that does
He's one of the
corporate
highest paid
executive
commissioners out there.
relocation.
New York doesn't even pay that much.
But there are
Chicago
plenty
doesn't even pay that much.
If you look at it on the broad scale things, and also New York and Chicago, certainly New York doesn't have half the crime problem that
But
Baltimore
the man
has.
gets a
Chicago does.
$3,000 a month housing on top of
Right.
and how an already credit for living here.
Again, you
So
can
he
make
gets a living residency on top of $3,000.
Y'all can nickel and dime
of
them.
it.
That is standard for
No,
executives.
not
It
that.
certainly is.
They did a
A
whole
housing
extra-
allowance, a
I
clothing
didn't
allowance,
listen yesterday,
a
did you?
transportation allowance. I did
I
listen.
read the whole thing about all the former commissioners in Baltimore.
In Baltimore.
And none of them had
In
none of
Baltimore,
that.
I'm talking about examining contracts nationally, not just for
All
police
right,
chiefs,
tomorrow
for
we're gonna
university
talk about
presidents.
that.
Yes, we
We're
will.
gonna talk about- I'm gonna
Yes,
look
we
that
will.
up tonight.
Yes, please
Because I
do.
know
Please do.
what
You'll
he
be
got,
astounded.
He didn't get nothing.
That's not
compared
true.
to that.
That's
You
not true.
even had
You're
the
just
mayor.
wrong about
You even
that.
had the mayor of Baltimore City said she wouldn't have paid that much. The former mayor, Sheila Dixon, said. She said 250,000
She didn't
probably
have
would have been
to.
the most.
And she brought Bill Feld in, and guess
Right.
what happened? They cleaned up crime, and they didn't have to pay him nowhere near
Right.
that amount.
Right.
of money.
Well,
Less money.
So now we're moving along, and we're on to a new commissioner and a new salary.
But this is
Next.
my thing. Before we go, because we gotta still talk about the minimum wage. But here's my thing: they couldn't hire police officers, right? Right. Thanks,
Thank you,
Thomas.
thank you, brother Thomas.
Thank you.
Past couple years, they could not hire officers. Matter of fact, they've lost officers. But Downtown Partnership has managed to hire 23 new officers, and the judges and everybody sent this out today, that if you live downtown, you can call them, and they will escort you to your car, to your bus stop, or to your residence or location for free.
And weren't they also hired to monitor the squeegee boys?
Right.
Which
But
But
you
they are-
only have to reside in this little area, 106 blocks.
thank
What
God.
about the rest of the city?
Well, again, but see, those folks have a special assessment where they pay for that. That's not coming out of city funds.
Oh, yes, it is.
No.
The mayor just gave them $4 million.
Yeah, they do.
But
They
that-
do
Go look
get
at
money.
the article I just wrote.
Downtown Partnership does get a combination of money from the city and from business taxes.
The mayor just gave them $4 million for an increase in their budget in order to hire more officers to patrol just this area,
I don't know enough about
just
Well,
like
one
they
thing I can
do
definitely
high
say-
crime areas.
As long as this bill passes, everybody will at least make $15.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Ivan. Ivan always
Now
brings
you
us
might
together.
not live long enough to see that paycheck living in
No.
Baltimore, unless you live downtown. Then you can get escorted wherever you go.
Wow.
That's
This is wild.
absolutely.
Well, I live downtown, so I don't have a problem with
Yeah,
it.
but
Next.
you don't.
Okay.
I know when we see Michael Harrison, I'm going to ask him exactly who his negotiator was because I want him to negotiate for me here on DMV
I'm telling
Daily.
you, you will be surprised at the
I
way
want him
that
to negotiate.
These are standard contracts.
for my contract.
Although you're right, see what he can get out of Hassan for
That's
you. Okay,
right.
good luck with that.
do they have this just somebody to escort you? Like, what if something happens? What they gonna do?
That's what I'm thinking. Like I don't think
They'll
they're
take out a
armed.
roll of quarters and they're going to call
That's like what
somebody.
they're gonna do. And
They
then-
got a radio and a broom, whatever you need.
Yeah.
But then they got but they have armed security too now with Downtown Partnership from what I heard. There's one number that you call from 10:30 to 7, and that isn't an escort, that is a guide who takes you. But from 7 p.m. to 10:30, that's an actual escort, which I think is an armed escort. That's what it says. I'm not making it up.
It says
Armed?
armed?
Yeah, when I went to go to their website, that's where I saw that they got this new plan. $4 million was increased. Their overall budget is $8 million. The city just gave them $4 million. They just hired 23 new officers, so they got 62 combined officers now that patrol this 106 block area. That you can call them at any time. This was distributed per judge's order to every employee of the judiciary to say, make sure y'all know that if you don't feel safe walking to your car, your bus stop, everything.
See the big problem with it.
Well, I guess
Really?
my issue initially was why the money was given to them I don't know if y'all remember, to monitor the squeegee kids.
Yes, I
Where the
remember
money
that.
should have gone to invest in programs for the kids. Like, they don't need monitoring. Like, they needed, an investment that was actually going to help them. So that was my issue with the whole Downtown Baltimore Partnership money.
My thing is this: if you're going to I think it's a great program, right? From cleanup to that. But if you're going to do that for downtown, do that for all of Baltimore,
Right.
not just the Inner Harbor, because they even said in their report that they're arming them like they do a crime-ridden community. right? That they're patrolling downtown as if it's one of the most crime-ridden communities in Baltimore. So we're going to protect down here, even though we don't have nowhere near the numbers that East Baltimore or Park Heights does. But we're still going to have a better force down here and a better patrol force. That makes absolutely no goddamn sense whatsoever.
We've had this conversation over and over again. This is the way the world works. Just like when we were talking about
conversation.
We on this show collectively on Federal Hill versus Cherry Hill. Why the disparity? I'll tell you why the disparity. Because there's a lot more money there. Those folks vote. And so they get more attention. It's just, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the way of the world. You want to know why certain areas, not just in Baltimore, I agree it's wrong.
You just said, no matter if it's right or wrong, it's the way of the world.
It's wrong. It is wrong. And it's the way of the world. That's the point I'm making.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
It is wrong. But in any city you go to, that's true. The place where people live who vote and have money are better resourced with everything than the poorer areas. That's dead wrong, but it's just so. It's true,
That's
you
one
can
of the
fight
things,
against it all you want, but unless you get us voting, then
that's one of the things we definitely had asked for in Irvington was to try to expand the downtown partnership and have them to be able to patrol at least the business corridors in a lot of these communities, especially the ones that are being sieged.
Oh no, you got to pay double for them to come out Irvington. Okay,
I ain't playing that.
I patrol downtown. I ain't coming.
Tomorrow is the hearing in the House.
Yes, sir.
What committee is it being held in? What time? And if people are watching and they want to go to Annapolis and be supportive of this, if you're in opposition, stay home. But if you want to be supportive and go to Annapolis, or if you can't make it to Annapolis and want to submit written testimony, how can people kind of get more involved in the fight for?
Or you can catch the Chamber of Commerce bus with Jason. I'm not sure.
I'm offering free rides for opposition.
That bus won't break down.
It might if you see what I'm riding outside.
So it's being heard in the House Economic Matters Committee tomorrow. Chairman Davis is the chair of the committee, and the hearing is going to start tomorrow at 12:30. We are the only bill that's going to be heard tomorrow. And if folks want to get more involved, we do have a pretty active Facebook page. It's FF15 Maryland, Fight for 15 Maryland page, and that's where we keep a lot of updates on what's coming next. And right now, what we're asking folks to do is to call your elected officials, tell them that you support this issue, email them if you can't get them on the phone, and just tell them your personal story. Tell them why you support, why you think that it's needed, and just reach out to them. So that's what we're asking people.
And tell them you want a clean bill.
Yes, there you go.
But see, here's my thing: you want a clean bill, but if Julian Ivey amends it and says we want to make it till next year. $15, y'all ain't gonna accept that?
That's still clean.
That's not clean. That's an amendment.
I'm just joking.
But it's gonna get it killed. I can tell you that. They ain't gonna go for that.
Well, it's not gonna be accepted, so it won't matter. But this does not mean, again, this will be a landmark achievement. That does not mean that we may not have to come back in a year or two and accelerate it. We did that with child care subsidy programs, but let's get this critical first step accomplished, and then we'll see what the landscape is.
All right, and the Senate side of things.
So
Corey McRae is the sponsor, right?
Corey McRae is our sponsor in the Senate. It's going to be heard in the Senate Finance Committee on February the 21st at 1 o'clock.
All right. So for those who don't know the way of Annapolis, you can get down there. You got to get down there an hour earlier if you want to testify. You got to be able to sign up, unless you got a homeboy or homegirl that works down there that can go sign you up. But you got to get down there in a timely fashion. You can submit written testimony to the committee. Even if you can't make it down there, now with email, they can just print out the numbers. I remember you used to have to before make 35 copies of it for this committee.
Still do.
But usually the legislator
we still got to do it.
We
still got to make 35 copies.
Really?
Yeah, we still got to make 35 copies. And it's just important for everybody, if you can't get down there, because I think, I would love if we could do this in a different way. It's the middle of the day, who can get off of work, right? Workers are at work. And Annapolis is not close to Baltimore. It's 45 minutes away. There's no public transportation. But emails are very important. If you can send a quick email. I know legislators that read them. I know that they also get lots of emails in opposition, so they need to hear from their constituents. They need to hear from their residents about how important this is and how much you support it. And even if you pick up the phone and make a quick call, they count those calls. They say 1 against 2 support, right? So they count those calls. So please make sure that you reach out to them and tell them, how you feel about this issue.
Yes, and DMV Daily family, let me give you a little piece of advice if you're not used to coming down to Annapolis, especially on Fight for 15 Day. I'm sure that they will welcome your support, but don't come down there thinking you're going to testify, okay? Because those panels are going to be loaded up, and they're going to be there unless you're prepared to wait until, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're probably not going to be able to testify. But what's important is, if you have the free time, to go down and cheer on those who are and stand in solidarity with the crowd. The bigger the crowd, the more impressed the folks are. And the one thing that 1199 and the other leaders of the coalition have been absolutely amazing at is turning out a huge crowd. So it's going to look like, the Marines have landed tomorrow in Annapolis, and they know that, and that's why they've cleared the schedule and only have one bill in it.
And there is a bus that does go to Annapolis, so I don't want to make it seem like there's not public transportation. The number 70 goes to Annapolis, so... I
don't think it goes directly to, though.
You can walk still a couple. It's not that far.
No, it
But
goes
the bus goes to the light rail, and from the light rail, you got to catch that from Cromwell, up near Cromwell, from the light rail.
Cromwell and
To take
Patapsco.
the
Correct.
12, right. To take the 12, too, goes around on that.
There's a bus that goes to Annapolis. It used to be the 14. It's now the 17.
14, that's what it is.
It's not the 14
Boy, I
anymore.
took that one time.
It's
Lord
the
have
70.
mercy.
But
the
this is
My
70.
child
important.
was born before I got
If
up in
you're, but
Annapolis.
if you're going
It is
during
about an hour and a half ride.
Yeah,
no, but
I
if you're
mean,
going during rush hour, there is a commuter bus. It's $5 and not $2 or whatever. But if you're willing to spend $5, you can go right down there to University of Maryland Medical Center where the gay boy shot the other gay boy, and you jump on the bus at 2:50. It's called the 2:15 bus.
over here.
You get $5, and they go straight there. They stop at Arundel Mills, and then they pull right up into the circle at Annapolis, and it's like a
That's every
40-minute
day?
ride. Yep,
Or
every
during
day.
the session.
Every day. All
But
day,
that's
all
during
year.
rush hour.
that commuter bus here.
That's during
It's
rush
always
hour,
been
right?
there.
And the hearings
from
are
8 to
midday.
11, and then 5 to 8.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you can go a little early,
Yep.
stay a little late.
Makes sense.
Now remember, you need ID to get into
Yes,
the
you
building.
do. Don't care.
Do not go down there without identification,
Or
you will
expired.
not get in there in that building. And as Ricardo talked about, to email your legislator. If you can go to the Maryland Journal website, you'll be able to get all their information. But just think about this: every email is the legislator's first name dot last name at house.marylandmd.us.
No, house.state.md.us.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, you said house.md.
State.md. That's what I just said.
We'll put a-
Negro.
That's not
House.
what
That's
you said. That's
what
what
he
you
just
got
said.
at the end. You didn't know what
Yeah,
the
what
term
he
was.
just said. House. That whatever. So that's their name. And the same thing on the Senate side is just Senate.state.md.us. Right. So make sure you flood their emails. They love emails.
Jason, can
Yes,
we put
they
that up
do.
on the
They-
website?
They can deal with the emails.
They love emails and phone calls.
Yeah, the phone call. No, they.
I know.
Boy, they're snappy, pissed off. God.
I have one last question, and I gotta go. So we have
Mrs. Jones, you're with SEIU,
$11.99.
and Mark, you're with SEIU.
500.
Did you two join forces in this fight? Your unions, did you two work together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very we have a
No,
very
I was just curious. So it's just not something that, and the reason I said it's just not something that you came up and said, well, we want to do this, but really you two have really joined forces along with a number of other groups around the state to do this for the real working individuals.
No, absolutely. And I think, too, it's a misconception that it's just, so we do work together, but it's a misconception that it's just labor, right?
Yeah,
Because we have, our coalition is, like I said, business owners, there's faith leaders, there's community groups like CASA. We have a lot of, and then there's just regular everyday people who care about the issue and they show up to our coalition meetings, right? So it's a really, because it's moving on a national level, it's such a broad coalition that we've been able to develop in support of this issue.
Okay.
But Mark
y'all-
and I do get to work together on this, though.
Yes.
Well, I
Y'all
just
have a
wanted to say
lobby day
good
in
job.
Annapolis?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's people's work. Yeah, we're going to have a lobby day on February the 18th. That's President's Day. It's going to be
How you
so
gonna have that on the day we having our thing? Y'all gonna take all our supporters?
no. So it's on Monday nights. The legislators go in late, so we're going to start our lobby day at 5:00, and we'll be in the House of Delegates. And we have lots of appointments set up, and we're asking everybody to come on down and use this as our opportunity to actually talk face to face with your legislators about this issue.
And for those who don't know, he said the legislators don't go in on Monday nights. We talked about before until 8 o'clock. So a lot of them come down in the evening. So that way, that's your opportunity to see them face to face. If you want to cuss them out, if you want to give them a hug, you want to bake them a pie and take it down there, whatever you want to do, you can do to a certain degree. But that's the night that they hold the big rallies, that they go down there in force, that they make their pitch to these legislators. Is very impactful. As a matter of fact, Baltimore City just had theirs the other night.
Lobby night.
And it was I heard it was a successful. Baltimore night is always a big night down in Annapolis. Even though we're probably the stepchildren of Annapolis right now in the legislature, we're going to get back to power one day. We got Maggie. And who else we got in leadership down there? That's about it. But
we got chastised for not being down there too.
We got Bill Ferguson.
He's in leadership. What's he lead?
He's the vice chair of B&T.
No, he ain't no leader. I'm talking about chairmanship.
Well, chairman aren't only leaders. Well, Joan wasn't a leader anyway. It's okay.
She was a leader.
Oh, okay.
Education, health, environment. Get it right, man. Get it right.
Well, okay.
We got new leaders.
Yeah, and we do. We got some great leaders down there that are making it happen. Bill, my main man. Matter of fact, he's coming on the program next week. We're going to talk about his rants. Well, I wouldn't even call him a rant. His comments, I should say,
about our
towards
mayor,
this administration, about crime and their lack of having a crime plan. And
maybe he'll have a special announcement.
Maybe.
Ooh, wouldn't that be something?
Steve Cohen's running for mayor.
Exclusive.
Maybe.
He ain't got the cojones.
But we'll see. We're still waiting on the mayor to come. We'll bring on any time, Madam Mayor.
She's coming.
All right, we with
it. I hear you, Catherine. She might be up to. No, she's not coming tonight, but it's coming soon.
Coming soon?
Yes.
We with it. We love it. And tell your boy stop calling her Kathy. He don't know the woman.
That's
like
Kahan.
that.
Don't get me started on him.
Man, I swear I went to somebody's page. It was Ferguson's today.
Yes, it was
Oh,
Ferguson's
Lord,
page.
they tore him a new.
Yes. Me, Tommy B, and Allie were tearing him up.
I feel sorry for people. It's like y'all bullying this man.
But he put himself out there.
Me,
he the one that jumped on there.
It's people like y'all, the bullies like y'all, that's gonna make people like him do them terroristic acts.
Oh my God! Well, I'll try to learn how to be meek
Bullies,
and mild mannered
bullying
like you,
man.
Hassan. Oh God!
No, it ain't me.
See, exactly. So if I'm a bully, you a bully. We gonna be a bully together.
All right, we gotta go. We're gonna wrap it up. Gotta go. I gotta go. So our main man Mark left, and we did what we did, but we definitely
Mark didn't leave.
I mean, Mark. I'm discombobulated, right? You can tell my mind is downtown on the casino right now. But want some more money, boy? Feels good. Keep going down there and winning a couple $1,000. Shoo! Anyway, but I ain't going to the casino tonight. I got to take care of daddy duty. But nonetheless, we want you to spread this program. Let people know about the Fight for 15. Let them know the importance of it. The hearing is tomorrow in the House. Mm-hmm. The 21st
is in the Senate
at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
If you want more information,
please check out our Fight for 15 Maryland page, our Facebook page.
Make it happen. And let me ask you real quick before we go off. What's the difference? Somebody asked me this the other day when we promoted this. What is the difference between SEIU 1199 and SEIU 500? Or y'all battle each other?
No, we represent. We're partners. We represent different workers. So 1189 is the largest healthcare union in the state. So we represent hospital and nursing home workers.
Yeah, 500 is the largest education local in the state. So we represent education workers.
So are y'all the largest, or y'all both to be the largest? Because what happened to ask me and all that? What do they represent?
They have state workers.
Oh, they're state workers. So everybody represents basically different employees.
Yes.
Judicial employees, health workers, and
others.
Mm-hmm. There's your answer right there for you. I'm not the person to answer that. That's why I told you I was going to ask, and I asked. Yes. And I see that you're watching, so now you got your answer. By the way, Justine Barrett's going to be on that next week as well. We're going to talk in depth about that police contract and other contracts across the country, as you say.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about
get
crime.
Someone from the executive
Baltimore.
search firm to come in here and tell you how customary all that is.
Well, Justine has been looking into this.
Oh, good, Justine. I can't wait to talk to you.
Yeah, she's going to break your bubble, bust your bubble.
I doubt it.
But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Remember, Christopher Urban, 5th Councilmatic District, Kelly Cross, 12th Councilmatic District. We're talking elections 2020 tomorrow here on Friday. But remember, new promise begins with a new day. Therefore, the promise of tomorrow is greater
Hey,
than that
Malia.
of yesterday.
Freaky Davis.